the Apostle Paul to the church at Philippi. He wrote this letter. Chapter 3, in this portion of the scripture, verse number 18, he says, the example of how a person should walk, and whom I often have told you, even weeping, and now tell you that they are enemies of the cross. And church, I tell you, I read that, and my mind just took a leap. And I thought to myself, I said, there was a time when the cross was a symbol of shame. With the Roman Empire, when they put people on those crosses and they put their sins and transgressions on a sign up above them, and they were ridiculed and they were mocked, they hung Jesus on that cross. And now, because Jesus defeated the cross, because the cross could not keep him dead, and even though he died on that cross, he arose out of the grave. And now that cross, instead of being a symbol of shame, has become a symbol of victory. And we Christians, we look at that cross and we go, glorious victory, because Jesus proved to us resurrection power, and that even though we are not Christ, the grave cannot hold us. Even though we are humans, and our bodies may stay in those graves until the time that Jesus calls it out, our spirits will not lay in those graves. The grave cannot hold us. But now, as Jesus is, as the Apostle Paul is pointing this out, he says, people who live lives that are immoral and indifferent to spiritual leading in their life, he says, they're enemies of the cross. Even though they may be in the church, and they may be sitting in the pews, they may be in the pulpit, he said, they're enemies of the cross. I go back to what I brought up yesterday on the broadcast in the church at Corinth, and the thing that the Apostle Paul talked about. He addressed this because basically you had an elder in the church that was living with a woman that was not his wife, and the Apostle Paul said that's wrong. And he says, you've got to deal with that in the church. You cannot allow that to be in the church because it causes confusion. Because it's a standard that's been lowered and it's immoral. Well, unfortunately, in our modern day society, that has become just the norm. And I'm amazed about it. And you go out in the world and you talk to many in society, and they say, well, it's my baby daddy, or I live with my old man, or whatever. And I'm going, what? And you see, that's in the world, but it should not be in the church. This is Pastor Jack King with the gospel on the radio broadcast.